The Mayor's Cabinet. Paul manages the strategic direction and daily operations of the Mayor's Office of Small and Minority Women Business. He also advocates for small businesses in the city of Baltimore and throughout the state of Maryland. He is the recipient of the SBA Small Business Champion of the Year for 2007 and the District Director's Unsung Hero in 2009. And Minority Small Business Champion of the Year Award for 2007. I could go on about Mr. Taylor, and he's probably like, please stop. But I do encourage you, please check out the agenda, look at the remainder of his bio. It is inspiring. He's a very credible gentleman. I'm excited to hear about how Baltimore is open for business and how to do business with Baltimore City. So without further ado, please join me in giving a warm round of applause and welcoming Mr. Paul Taylor.
Thank you so much. That's a lot of stuff. I'm very happy to be here today to speak. I was thinking there was going to be a room full, actually maybe a room full of people, I just can't see it. That what it is. But so I have, and this probably will go faster. I'd like if people ask questions while we're going along so we can keep in context. But I appreciate being here. I have some members of my team here, so maybe half the room is my team. I have my deputy director, Mr. Sean Stinnett here. I have Charlene. I never know to say her whole name. She has all kinds of names. Nada Sabrina, right? Is that what it is? And then I have Jenna here, and I have someone who's running my MBDA office here, Mr. Scott Phillips. And we've got quite a few things going on with our operation. I'm going to just briefly kind of tell you a little bit about what's going on with our operation. So we have essentially three functions happening at our small business and minority business office. We operate what's called the city's Main Streets. Main Streets is an innovative program on how to do community development. Mr. Sean Stinnett runs that program. That is trying to really drive economic activity in commercial districts within Baltimore City. We also have the two MBDA contracts that we manage. One is the advanced manufacturing, which is what Scott Phillips manages. And that is to really try to build out an ecosystem in Baltimore for niche, small, minority-owned businesses that do manufacturing. And that could be food manufacturing, could be making, products, candles, personal care. We have a lot of different companies that we have that we're trying to build out a system that makes sense for them. We also advocate for, as you know, and I'm going to touch on this last, but we advocate for businesses that are doing business in Baltimore City. What does that mean? That is, I start my classes when I talk to people about this. I said, look, governments don't make anything, right? They make nothing at all, but they do procure everything. And so we try to figure out how can we guide people through that process, help them to build their companies so that they can do business with Baltimore City, so they can go after some of the contract opportunities in Baltimore City. So, what I'm going to talk a little bit about today is the procurement process in Baltimore. And by the way, that's changing. And is anybody here familiar with Workday? Ever heard of Workday? So, Workday is an integrated system that is being used to manage city government, and that's from payroll to procurement, HR, all the functions, all of our finance functions are being managed in that process. Well, interesting enough, our procurement is about to launch in there, and so you can see there are things that are going on every day with that. But I'm going to talk a little bit about procurement. It might change a little bit with Workday. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the procedures that we use in Baltimore for companies that are interested in doing business in Baltimore. Talk a little bit about who's eligible. We talked about citywide. That's one of the things that's going to change. We have an MDE and WBE, meaning MDE meaning Minority Business Enterprise, and WBE, Women Business Enterprise program in Baltimore that's very robust. It's been around since the late 70s. We also, I'm going to talk a little bit about bidding and estimating, some of the things that we find were challenges coming from some companies. So this is a list of all of the agencies that procure services in Baltimore. It's not a mistake that I put Public Works as one, because they spend about $800 million a year in services in Baltimore City. We have our second is that our transportation department. That's where all of the roads and all of the services get done in terms of anything on the streets in Baltimore. We have the Department of General Services, because General Services, as you can tell, is where manages all of our real estate. So all of the real estate that for the city offices are managed through General Services. Our Department of Housing is where, and Community Development is where all of our properties are procured through any development activity that you're going to do in Baltimore, and especially in the housing arena. You need to communicate with Department of Housing and Community Development. Our Bureau for Procurement, all the services that the city purchases on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, all of them come through our procurement office. And then we have other agencies like the Department of Health. And as you can tell with COVID, they've been very, very active over the last couple of years in all of the activities that have been surrounding health, the health department. But the health department also inspects all of our restaurants to make sure that they meet the code before they open. So all of those things are part of what happens. Our Department of Recreation, they manage all of the parks that we have in Baltimore City, and there are many golf courses, parks, and a number of other recreational facilities. They manage that in Baltimore City. And then the other agency that does a lot of procurement is our police department. In some instances, we sometimes complain about the share of our budget that the police department have, but you know, I'm not gonna fight with the police department. All right, so we have three primary methods of procurement in Baltimore City. We procure all the goods and services, and we do that through the Bureau of Purchases. Those are usually done through, we have a portal that is online that anybody can 24/7 can go and reach and find out about what's available to bid on. And those bids are then assembled on a certain date. That's all of that is provided in the documentation that's on the portal. And Baltimore City Buy is that portal that I said is where you can find out about contract opportunities. However, what I should let you know is that portal is going to be revamped. So we're going to have to learn together how things should evolve from that portal. And then all of our bids, all of our proposed bids in Baltimore have to go through the process and become, and utilize minority and women-owned businesses, right? And what that means is that you have to be certified by our city's law department, or there's a office in there called the Minority Women Business Opportunity Office. They do all of the city's certifications. Those certifications, most bids require that some level of certifications happen or participate on those contracts. Why is that important? That's one of the ways that we found after we do our disparity study, we find that we have to engage our minority businesses in our community. Those companies have to go through a process and become certified with the city, and once they're certified, we then can put them on the contract if they qualify. Most goods have a goal of 27 and 10. What does that mean? 27 minority business, 10% women-owned businesses that can participate on those contracts. So one of the things that I find most people don't understand when we talk to them about minority businesses is that they typically don't understand that all businesses, whether they're minority or not, can bid on contracts. Right? Anybody can bid on a contract. as a prime contractor. However, you have to be eligible, you have to make sure you have the wherewithal to be able to manage those contracts. But even if you are a minority business and you bid as a prime, you still have to get a minority and woman-owned business to participate on those contracts with you. So the program is designed to grow our minority business community. There are also, besides certified businesses, on many of our contracting businesses, that is where we're asking people to build things, where we're asking people to be on our road contracts. There is also a pre-qualification. That pre-qualification really digs deeper into your ability to perform on those contracts. And so we look at that as an opportunity. So it's not only certified for, especially in the construction trades and the architectural and engineering trades, it's not only that you can be certified as a minority and women business, but you have to be pre-qualified also to participate on some of those contracts. And the pre-qualification is not race-based, it's all companies that want to do business in that way in the city of Baltimore. In the pre-qualification, we look for the capability and capacity of the company so that we know that they can complete these projects. And if you don't know this, if you're a business in Maryland, you filed with SBAT, the state's Department of Assessment and Taxation, you have to be in good standing. Because if you're going to engage in a contract at any level, you have to be in good standing. So I always tell people, check that, because if I start talking to people on the phone, the first thing I'm going with my keyboard is I'm looking at your stats. And if you are not in good standing, my conversation is more than likely going to last about 2 more minutes, right? Because I don't need to spend a lot of time with people who are not in good standing with the state of Maryland, because you can't get a contract. If you're going to engage in a contract to do something with anyone, work with somebody as a subcontractor or not, if you're not in good standing, more than likely they can't do business with you. So I always tell people, check that first, check that annually. This is a quick view of the city's portal that we do all of our procurements through. And so this portal is the Baltimore City buy, and under the red tab, you see where all the open bids are available for people to bid on. If you click on that, you can literally follow and look at all of the open bids, see what services we're procuring, what we're looking for. You can also register your company here. You can also look at active contracts. And I always suggest to people to look at our active contracts. Why do I say that? Because on the active contracts, what you're gonna see is contracts that are right now, that are ongoing right now, being executed. You'll also learn about the contracts that, when they expire, right? Because then you'll know when to start planning and put your bids together to go after some of these contracts. And then you can look at where the bids and the awards have been provided. There's also places where these bids are going to be advertised, and you can also see important other links. For instance, we have our link here, the Baltimore Source Link, which is where we put all the resources that are available to help small businesses in Baltimore. So those are very important pieces of information to know about Baltimore City Levy. Like I said earlier, this is a centralized procurement service. It is going to go through some changes. We are looking at revamping it so that we can make that available to others in a larger form, doing a lot more work in Baltimore City. Any changes or pre-bids or anything that's going to happen, it goes through a notification process here. We try to notify people when changes are occurring in the bids. Let's say that we're in the middle of a bid and we've learned some new information. We want to make sure that it's updated. All of that goes through there. that information. When the pre-bid conference is coming on, all of that information is also provided. I mentioned the open bids and I mentioned active contracts. Those are very important to know about. So, always the mystery, which is really not a mystery, it's all open and available. Baltimore has the certification program that I mentioned earlier. There is a relatively easy process to become certified in Baltimore, although a lot of people think it's hard only because a lot of times when they start their application process, they don't start with all the documents. And when you don't start with all your documents, it takes a lot longer. So it's a relatively easy process. The certification is one where you literally have all your business information, the type of services you provide, have your tax returns for the last couple of years, all of those things you have to have when you do your application. And it takes maybe about 30 to 60 days to be certified. There's a meeting where the certifying officer has to come out and take a look at your facility and make sure that you are who you say you are and you can do what you say you can do. And once you get that certification, then it's up to you to start shopping in Baltimore for work, for that work. It doesn't automatically come to you now that you've been certified. You've got to go after this work. You've got to knock on doors. You've got to come to pre-bid conferences. You've got to get to meet some of the prime contractors that are doing the work. And I would also suggest going back to the portal and looking at those contracts that are out there. Sometimes there may be contractors on those there may be other subcontractors on those contracts that are not performing. And so there may be opportunity for a contractor to get on another contract that's already in business. How do you do that? Well, you make sure that all the primes know who you are, and know what you do, provide them with a capability statement. All right, I put this in here because there are times when I found small businesses don't really understand, and if you don't, this is where you probably go back to Business 101, how to bid on some of these contracts. And the reason why I put that in here because there are many small businesses who bid jobs and they look at only the jobs. They only look at the material and payroll, but they don't look at where their general administrative expenses are going. They don't know where all of the other expenditures that they need to put in that contract so that they can be profitable. So we try to guide people through that process. So bidding is not just material and labor. It's material, labor, general administrative expenses, and then profit. So we make sure that people know that. And the company's responsible for the contract and responsible for the cost that they said they're going to be able to do it at. And if they're unable to do it, then that could lead to some problems. This is what I just talked about, the labor, materials, general, administrative, and then profit. Labor should be all of your labor costs, not just what you pay your contractor, but all of the costs, the taxes, and all of those things that you pay as you are building out your pricing. Your overhead, typically around 7% of the subtotal, and then your G&A, which is what you're putting in there to really kind of fortify your bids so that you'll be profitable and you'll pay for all of your expenditures as you manage these contracts. Here's what we look for. We look for, when you look at your material cost, your quantity, pricing, delivery of it, staging of it, and these are all cost centers that one should pay attention to when they look at materials. Somebody was taking a picture of that. I'm going to go back. Right. Yeah. And then, there's also your cost of operation. When every day that you walk into your office, you turn your lights on, you have expenditures, the rent, utilities, insurance, cost of office and staff, and your bond. All of these should be included in your bid so that you can come out ahead. The worst thing that I've ever seen happen is somebody starts a bid, starts working on a bid, they get into the contract and they forgot something, right? And then because they forgot something, they no longer can be profitable. Or, God forbid, you're having to work with a factor and you didn't anticipate that they were going to take 12% of your price, right? If that happens, you're cutting into your profit right there. So you've got to anticipate some of these things as you build out your cost. And then this is where your profit should be some percent of the total. And it should be in line with what you believe your profit margins are, or the industry profit margins are for your industry. Some of this can be found, by the way, if you look at some ratio analysis for your business, for your industry, you'll see where some of these expenditures, where some of these, the typical profit margins are for your industry. Just a few terms to remember. Procurement, talked about that, how cities, states, federal government goes about getting bids on contracts. There are requests for proposals which are provided, which are asked for by agencies like, in Baltimore, the Baltimore Development Corporation or our housing department does requests for proposals where they're looking for somebody to give them some ideas on projects, usually real estate related. Bids are where we are asking for procurement services. We're procuring services and goods for on behalf of our agencies. The procurement office does a lot of those bids, and they're typically opened on every Wednesday in Baltimore. There's a pre-bid conference. If you're not aware of that, pre-bid conferences are where you can go and learn about all of the activities and ask questions about the bids prior to it going out for bid. Not only that, you can also get information about who else is going to bid on this contract. You may find your prime contractors there that you can partner with them to bid on projects. MBE, I mentioned that, Minority Business Enterprise, WBE, Women Business Enterprise. In Baltimore, we don't utilize the disadvantaged businesses unless you're doing some federal or state contracts where they have federal or state dollars involved in that. And then, of course, you know who your buyers are. Your buyers are usually somebody in an agency or in the procurement office who specialize in certain agencies, and they're the ones who are typically going to be buying all the services. They're the ones you probably will want to talk to. And then I mentioned earlier, the lowest responsible bid. We're looking for low bids, not so low that you can't get the job done, but low enough. And one of the things that we're doing in Baltimore, a lot of people have gotten real smart about providing us with the lowest bids, and then they do change orders through the process. We are getting rid of the change orders. We're trying to eliminate them. We can't get rid of them totally, but we have to eliminate as much of that as possible. We also look for a responsive bid. Somebody who has responded to the RFP, that means to the letter of the RFP, you responded to the request for proposals, and you've given us everything that we're asking for. And of course, a responsible bid, meaning that you can actually do the work. All right. I think I'm open to questions. Yes, sir.
That's a perfect time. Brother Taylor, it's Rodney C. Burris. It's good to meet you again. I just messaged you on Facebook.
Yes.
I'm going to take this leader to an interview downstairs. Is there a way that we can get this slideshow? Where can we find that?
I'm not sure if they're going to send it out, but if not, I can certainly send it to you.
I'll connect with you, sir.
Yeah. Rodney, you?
Yeah, we know each other.
Okay, yeah. So you can get it. Yeah. Any other questions?
I don't know which question you might have already answered it. How are you? I'm Danielle Jefferson. I'm with All Things Creative. We actually
All Things Creative?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Good. We are a women-owned business. We are a minority-owned business, clearly 8A certified. We are economically disadvantaged, which you just said you don't really do business.
In the city, we don't necessarily recognize
Yeah,
that.
unless you don't recommend it.
No, recognize. No.
Oh, you don't recognize it, unless it comes in through a federal or state contract?
Yes.
Okay, and, what about if we come in as a subcontractor? Does it matter to you at that time if your prime is not,
Well, so in order for the prime contractor to get credit for the utilization of a minority or women business, they have to partner with one, have
Right.
a working relationship with one.
Right.
Okay? So, yes, they're recognized that way. Now, if you're saying that you're not in the eligible, by the way, I didn't mention this, but we have 5 counties around Baltimore City that are the eligible counties, right? So that's our market area.
Okay.
And if you're in one of those, you certainly.
Okay, so let me just understand what you just said. I'm familiar with Baltimore City. So
Yeah.
you're saying Baltimore County, Howard County.
Not Howard.
Okay, but Baltimore and then 4 other counties are
Yes,
included?
yes, so
under your
Baltimore
umbrella?
County, and this,
Anne Arundel.
Anne Arundel, yep,
Okay.
yep. Not PG County.
Okay. So, I mean, I can find it, but those
Yes.
counties, they recognize economically disadvantaged?
Yes,
Okay.
and that really comes from, we do, every 5 years, we do what's called a disparity study.
Mhm.
And that disparity study tells us where we are getting most of our activity in terms of companies doing business with the city of Baltimore. And also, they are also in the minority and still being recognized as it is a disparity between the majority in their company.
So, if we go into the, Baltimore City 5 portal, we can find opportunities there in those counties as well?
Oh, no, in Baltimore City, but we
Oh.
recognize companies that are in those counties.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
All right. Yes.
You mentioned about the lowest bid, responsive bid, and responsible. So, is it the policy or requirement that you have to accept the lowest bid, or there's some other, factors that can be?
Lowest responsible bid, right? So that is, we're looking for low price because we want to be fair to the citizens of Baltimore. But we also want to make sure that one, the company is eligible to bid, and they have answered the question, the RFP responsible. So we look at those factors because, we could bid all day, but if you don't have the wherewithal to do the work, but you just bid it just to bid, or you bid and say, oh, never mind, that's pretty expensive for us in the city of Baltimore.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we're, hi, I'm Lisa Dodson, from News Technology. So we're an 8A WOSB, and we also are MVP. However, we're in PG County. So are we able to bid for work in Baltimore City?
Sure. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure you realize is that any company, legitimate company in the United States, can bid on contracts in Baltimore City. The only challenge is if the prime contractor, and you probably would be a prime, right? If you wanted to bid on a project in Baltimore. If you are a prime contractor and you bid, if the prime contractor wants to be eligible to put his contract in, they have to find MBEs and WBEs to participate within the market area. Yeah, so yeah, any company can bid in Baltimore.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Chantel Farmer. Just wanted to ask you about the manufacturing company that you mentioned earlier in the
Yes.
presentation. So I'm a pharmacist and I'm looking for a building in like Baltimore Center City where it's a mixed use and I can actually produce pharmaceutical drugs as well
Yep.
as medical supply. So I was wanting to know, is there any, pointers or advantages to that particular area of manufacturing pharmaceuticals?
So Scott is talking to somebody, but that's the guy you need to see. Because he is leading our advanced manufacturing company. And we can help you with real estate, we can help you with finding out other resources, we can put you in touch with resources that we have within the city to provide you with all of that help. Whether it's, and Scott partners with our economic development agencies, we partner with other organizations that are part of our ecosystem that we're building out for manufacturing.
Okay,
Yes.
and one more thing, there's a property downtown that I have my eye on for a very long time, and I wanted to know if there's any other grants besides the project store grant that they have coming up, like the platform.
I think-
Any other?
Let's just say that what it would really require is that we sit down and talk to you and really understand what you're trying to do, and then we can look at what resources are available throughout Baltimore City to assist you.
Okay, sounds great, thank you.
Yep, make sure that we get your card. Anybody else? No one else? Aiden did a great job where everybody went to sleep.
And I just wanna say in all fairness, this room was difficult to find. So, that
No,
You got the cream of the crop.
That's right. Great, all right, well, thank you all.
Thank